8 o'clock on the start of your Wednesday morning. Good morning to you. Glad you're with us for Second Cup. If you're with us earlier in the morning, about 5:15, we have a very similar conversation that airs both on TV and here on Facebook Live. We had discussed that we were going to be talking about summer jobs, the good, the bad, the ugly, those first jobs that we had as teenagers. And we never actually got to that conversation.
We had every intention of talking about that at 5:15, but then we started talking about the Catholic Diocese and what was happening there.
Well, and we have a lot to talk about here this morning when it comes to the diocese, and we're also going to hear from you this morning about those first jobs and what you missed or loved or hated about those summer gigs.
Yeah. So good morning to everybody who's with us. Kristen, Gerardo, Peter, Kelly, Megan, Lori, Barbara. If you're joining us for first time ever, let us know.
I feel like we should start with the Catholic Diocese and just kind of go from there.
So we better just watch our time because, boy, we just kept going this morning. Then we're like, oh, we have no more time.
You know what? It's a really big deal for a lot of people. There's a lot of Catholic faithful here in Western New York. It's a very religious area. And when it comes to the foundation of people's lives being uprooted and more or less closed, boarded up and shipped elsewhere, I think it rocks a lot of worlds.
And I also think that, you know, what we've seen over the past, maybe like 8 years or so, is things have really changed a lot in the diocese. And as we uncovered, and I say we because Channel 7 was the one who did so much of this reporting, as we uncovered the things that were happening there and the things that were being covered up there, that changed a lot of people's perspectives.
Well, and then, you know, Lori says that COVID killed church attendance. I think it goes beyond just COVID because I think a lot of people were watching, especially those live streams and trying to maintain the faith while they were in isolation. And you know, you're right. When it comes to the sex scandal that the church was wrapped up in and the bankruptcy it now faces as a result, people have simply lost their trust and their faith in the church.
And they don't want to put their money into an organization that they feel like does not represent them and is not doing the right thing.
So Sherry says many nuns were teachers and not getting paid as private sector teachers, and that became a big expense for the church. Okay, that's one element here. They're also citing a lack of priests, which obviously is a big problem. Mass attendance is down, but they're focusing, the bishop says, too much on surviving instead of being in mission mode. Now, what is mission mode? According to the bishop, he says teaching, welcoming, and you know, really expressing and learning about the faith is the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. So they mentioned that too. And, you know, when we were talking at 5 o'clock today too, a lot of people also mentioned the church not maybe opening up its perspective a little bit when we talk about other things.
You mean changing with the times?
Changing with the times, yeah. And someone this morning actually mentioned, you know, the reason they were pushed away from the Catholic Church is they got divorced and they felt no longer welcome.
So this is interesting, too, what Anita is saying. And we were kind of having this conversation a little bit at 5:15 this morning as well. Anita says, faith is on your heart and soul, not in the building or physical church. I've wondered about that because, you know, even as a Jewish man, you know, for me, my faith is less about the actual practice of going to temple. It's more the traditions that were built with my family when we were younger. And I feel like that's kind of like the foundation of our religion.
Elizabeth says, I was born and raised Catholic. Now I won't go back. The church does not reflect my beliefs anymore. James says, this is a shame for so many parishioners, but it's a result of years of covering things up. We're seeing this in numerous churches. And you know what? I feel like so many people feel like this. They're like, yeah, you're seeing problems now because you did not face them in the past.
So in other words, you're just brushing and kicking the can down the road.
And I do think, remember when Bishop Malone, former Bishop Malone was here and he
lied to Linda.
He basically told us he was going to get to the bottom of this. He was going to this. And then Charlie, of course, uncovered that he knew about this all along and that, you know, everything that was coming out of his mouth was maybe not the truth.
Well, remember when you saw the bishop and he, you know, put his hand in his heart and said, oh, Katie, I'm devastated about what happened.
So when the bishop came to be on AM Buffalo, he came in and it was right after all this happened. And Ed knows that, like, growing up as Catholic school, I was like, oh my God, the bishop's here. I shouldn't have said, oh my God, like, oh my gosh, the bishop's here. Like, I was freaking out. So I was the one who brought him back, and we started talking about it, and he was talking about how hurt he was, this and this and this. And you know, you're kind of taught to trust and believe these leaders as you are growing up in this church and growing. I mean, I went to Catholic school until I graduated high school, and then we got married in the Catholic church. Like, we went all the time. And yeah, and then when Charlie started doing his reporting and all this stuff kept coming out, personally, I was like a little disappointed, let's say.
Well, and so that's like that blind trust that you put in a faith leader, right?
Mhm.
Because they are a man or a woman of God.
Yeah.
And so, how many of us are doing that nowadays? You know, Lauren says that she's bringing her kids and goes to church. I just want to go back to her comment really quickly. She
Yeah.
says we still try to go weekly to church and bring our kids up in the church. Mary says I even went to Catholic school, would not go back to Catholic school or a Catholic church.
And it's not bad. Like, they're wonderful values, right? Like, maybe you don't agree with every single thing the church with, but there are good values, solid values. And like, I kind of have come to think that like values to me are what's more important than a lot of other things.
Well, and that's what I'm kind of, I think, going for when I'm talking about like those specific traditions, those foundational moments, those teachings that you learn at home.
And that's values,
Right,
because
exactly.
like, right. And that translates into your home life, right? And it's what do you what is important to you? And really, like, being a good person, that is a big value, right? Like the way that you treat other people, the way that you fill in the blank. I don't know. So I've come to kind of think that it's a little bit more about that and like raising kids with good values, wherever you find that.
Jeanette, good morning. I was really sad at my church 2 weeks ago. I go every week. We're a small Lutheran church, but there was a confirmation that day, and all of a sudden we were really packed, which was great. But lots of talking, rolling of the eyes during service, fanning the face because we don't have AC on yet. Okay. Well, I've never seen more rudeness in church ever. It was like they had never been there before or seen a church in a movie at least. Have respect, at least for those who take that time to be there, I think is what she's trying to say. Jason, I too was born and raised in a Polish Catholic church. However, being a gay man, I don't feel accepted within the church structure.
Kelly says something very similar. The Catholic Church needs to update philosophy and change with the times. I went to Catholic high school, but I don't go to church any longer.
So I wonder, because there was a Lutheran, would you call him a priest still? I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know. He was a reverend pastor? I don't know.
A
The
faith
leader.
leader, right,
The faith
exactly.
leader.
In the Lutheran church, who was
Just the
talking
leader.
about how they opened up the doors for the Buffalo Gay Men's Chorus, along with a number of other musical groups, to perform in a concert, a show that was canceled by the Buffalo Catholic Diocese after learning that the Buffalo Gay Men's Choir was going to be part of this and singing. Like, at what point do you say, you know what, it's 2024 and perhaps this has been around forever, and so many of the people who perhaps were in the church are part of that group? Do you know what I mean? I think it's very difficult to throw stones when the house is made of glass.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, can we have to stay. Okay, so you want to say like that's a value of the Catholic Church, right? Okay, so they don't believe in same-sex marriage. Okay, so maybe that's one of their values. But do you want to say that we hold so strongly to that value that we can't even let people come perform?
Right.
I don't know. That was a choice they made.
Your mom says, I thought the Pope recently said that all are welcome. Yes, he also made a comment yesterday or 2 days ago that was much less ambiguous. And I believe it was an Italian word for the F word.
No.
And we're not talking about
a derogatory term for gay people.
Right.
And he used that word. He did apologize. He backtracked.
Yes.
He said, but it wasn't a good look.
Howard
I
says,
think we can agree.
church
We don't use that word.
equals hypocrites. Not everyone, but a lot are so sad. I prefer to practice my belief at home. Anita says the word is inclusion.
Yeah, right. And the world needs it. She's right. You don't want people to feel, I just feel like as any faith community, you can't be standing there saying, why aren't people coming anymore? Why don't we this? Why aren't they? If you're not going to maybe be a little bit open. And one thing that I have always just kind of leaned towards, how I feel about women and the roles that we play.
How do you feel about women, Katie? Tell us all.
We should be in charge of all of it. No, but what I'm saying is I have always felt that, like, yes, I had nuns when I was, in school. And I'll tell you what, there were not a lot of women involved in what was happening within the church, and there were a lot of men, as we've learned, who were covering up for each other.
Right.
And so my question just is, women, and I know this is like, maybe I'm putting like stereotypes and stuff, but women tend to have like a mothering role. They kind of keep like, I just wonder what would have happened, or if it would have been so widespread if there were more eyes.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think that the women did not know about this? The nuns, the people who were also kind of the leaders.
And wasn't there that one movie about that? There was. I don't remember what it was called though.
Spotlight?
No, not Spotlight. It was a different one. I don't know.
Maybe it's a rhetorical question.
Maybe it is. I don't know that we'll know. I do think if there were more women in leadership roles, maybe, but they weren't in leadership roles even.
Mm-hmm. And they won't.
So what if they knew about it, but they couldn't say it? Although, like, again, we all need to speak up, but I don't know. I don't know.
James says lots of judgmental commenters, and that's okay. I mean, look, that's why we're here for Second Cup, to hear all voices on all sides of this issue. Jeanette says we're having a Pride service June 30th, and we have some wonderful drag queens doing readings and serving communion.
Your mom had it too. Doubt.
That what?
That was the one with Meryl Streep in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're doing a children's sermon too, Jeanette says. That's great. Marguerite says that's why non-denominational churches are so important and popular. Anita says religion, politics, and racism, and probably most issues are exactly the same. In terms of what?
Maybe she's thinking like that there's issues that don't get addressed within them all. I don't know.
What, because people are covering up for each other, or they're trying to keep one group down and boost up another?
I don't know.
It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Though Shirley says, I feel like my church is an extension of my family. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah. Sherry has an interesting question about, like, is it affecting Baptist, Lutheran? I do think overall, I would be interested to take a look at where people going to services, just in general, not just Catholic, like, where does that stand? Are we seeing a decline all over? I think we are. I feel like from the last reports that we saw, we were, but this has been maybe years since I looked.
While others are increasing, though, I think it was like,
were they?
I think Eileen just recently did this story. I think she was talking to Jewish faith leaders.
I'll tell you what, it always surprises me that the population of Jewish people is like 2%.
I know.
And maybe it's because we have such a big Jewish population in Western New York. Or I'm just so exposed to it. I don't know.
Okay, so here's Eileen's article from March of this year. The poll says, this new poll had just been released at that point. The poll says just 3 in 10 Americans attend a religious service every week or almost every week. So that's 30%. It also found Protestants rank second when it comes to weekly churchgoers, followed by Muslims and Catholics.
Who was number one, did it say?
It doesn't. Okay, so, yes, I was right. So at Temple Beth Tzedek in Amherst, the Gallup poll is where this rabbi's from. The Gallup poll actually shows that there's been a 7% increase in the Jewish faith over 20 years. So while one is going down, the other is going up.
And we have 30% of people who regularly attend any sort of service of any religion.
Right.
Okay. I wonder how that compares to years past. Interesting.
I think that's got to be down from years past. 30% is not a lot. 1 in 3.
Carr says, did that pop up? My computer's. Oh, good. I just lost the internet.
Oh, good. Oh, Carr says, I loved going to Catholic school. It's very sad what's happening. We need a Northtown City and Southtowns Catholic school and separate from the diocese completely. Now, how does that work?
So there are schools, I think, that are separate from the diocese. But then they don't get that diocesan money. So they have to fund themselves through, fundraisers and through tuition and stuff.
Well, the diocese is bankrupt, right? And in some cases, more than just financially. Some would say it's morally bankrupt as well.
And it's sad. Like, there are some really good priests and really good people and really good, there are good people out there.
Father Ted, who used to work at St. Mary's on the Lake, I think is now at Saints Peter and Paul.
Okay.
Is where so he used to be, we used to see him, and by we, I mean, on the days that I would go to church with Russ and his family, he would be there. But he married Russ's sisters, and Father Ted is the nicest, most genuine guy in the entire world. And I think that when you find people like that, it's so important to hold on to them, because
Yeah.
people really, truly, I think, are restored when they meet somebody like that, compared to what, the image of the church actually is.
Yeah. Oh dear. Mary says, well, our neighbors had a priest over from the local church for dinner. Once came out to that place, and then it ended up being one of the people who was on the list.
And that's a problem.
Right. And the list
Sad.
was extensive here in Western New York.
And exactly, Lauren, this is exactly what I'm saying. Father Ted is the best. He gave me back hope for the church.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, that I do think is interesting, and we've had this conversation before, is that, again, there's good people, like maybe Father Ted, I don't know, but for example, within the church, there's good leaders, right? Or priests. And like, maybe they don't buy into every single thing. Like, listen, you got to toe your company line, right? Right. Everybody does that, right? You do what you have to do for your work. You have to keep in mind, it is part
Some of
work
us,
too, right?
yes.
It is part work. So like, maybe there are things that they personally would be like, I think we could bend on this a little bit, but they don't get the okay for it,
Right.
So I think, keeping people around like that who maybe are a little bit more open-minded, that you can see maybe they can't exactly, preach it to the congregation.
There's a little bit of a gray area.
Yeah. And like,
Mhm.
isn't there always a little bit of a gray area?
Absolutely. I hate black and white. I'm the grayest of gray.
Now, I like a good rule. Don't get me wrong. I like a good rule. But like, sometimes there's more to it,
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, this is going to continue to develop over the days and weeks. We're expecting to learn more about which churches are actually closing and merging later in the summer. And then that merger will finally happen late August.
My mom was also saying too, like, this is going to be a big change for a lot of people.
Right.
Although we have been seeing it happen, right? My mom grew up and went to All Saints, and like, that was my grandparents' social life. We were at like what the heck would
Lawn
you call it?
feet.
The lawn fete, yeah, the picnics, the whatever. We would go do all that stuff, and my grandparents would go do all that stuff, and it's just different now. But things are different.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you have different communities in different places. Okay, let's talk about summer jobs. What was your best summer job?
So I used to work at a camp, a day camp on Long Island. And, all Jews go to day camp or sleepaway camp. And I was no different. So, we talk about stereotypes that are true. That was it.
Quick clarify. You weren't in charge of the children, were you?
God, no. I refused to work as a camp counselor.
Thank you. We saw the light at the end of that tunnel right off the bat. We're like,
I knew I was not going to be able to handle it. But I also knew that I was going to make more money working in the office. So that's what I wanted to do.
You were in the air-conditioned office.
In the air-conditioned office. You know me in the heat.
The kids are out sweating, running around.
But I loved it.
Filing papers.
Do you know what, though? I got such a glimpse of how things are run. And kind of that was my MO, I think, growing up, was learning about the organization as opposed to just being a cog in the wheel. I wanted to run the organization and make sure that it functioned efficiently.
I'm sure they loved that. They're probably like, get this kid out to the basketball court.
You're right. Are you kidding? That's the last place they wanted me. But anyway, we'd love to hear what your jobs were growing up. It turns out that this year in particular, there are a higher number of jobs for teenagers than there have been in 14 years.
All right. Lori says her best summer job was working on a farm. That sounds fun.
Interesting.
Anita says she babysat all summer starting at age 13. Jeff Baker says he's had the same summer job for 50 years. Your mom says you had 3 jobs at once.
I did. I worked in the office at camp. I worked in an office, a real estate office. Loved that because you really got an idea about how real estate back and forth works, buying and selling. Need that later in life. And I also worked as a cater waiter, which you've heard about before.
Oh, yeah.
That was not a fun job.
I worked at Arbordale Nursery, where they realized that I was pretty good at catching the koi fish that people wanted. So I did that. And then I also ran the register there. I was a lifeguard. So I would lifeguard during the day. Then I go to Arbordale in the evening, some evenings. And then I babysat all the time.
I mean, that's a great side gig for anyone.
It was, because you just get cash.
Yeah.
And like, if you've got a responsible babysitter, I feel like you're like, yes, please.
That's what Jeanette's saying, being paid for babysitting. It paid for all of her college books, and now kids don't buy books. They just walk around with a tablet and everything's on that. Not fair.
And I just say, I can't believe how much babysitters make these days.
Oh, please. It's a good thing we don't have kids.
People pay babysitters like $20 an hour, $15 to $20 an hour.
I was talking to somebody who...
So you go out for a night, you pay your babysitter $100.
Yeah, it's a lot. On top of whatever you're paying to go out.
Now, that being said, like if you've got someone you trust your kids with, you're like, here you go.
Yeah.
But still, you don't go out quite as much.
I was talking to somebody the other day who said, I wish I lived the life that you did. and we don't have kids. So I kind of think that that's a choice that you make, you know?
Of course it is. Yeah.
So
Huge choice.
my choice is keep my money. Not that I have any of it, but keep it for myself.
Oh, Edward. Well, you have your time to do what you want with.
And that's maybe time is money.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you have the ability to do what you want.
I like Zeke's comment here. That's why we need to make $250,000 a year, going back to our conversation from yesterday.
Thank you.
Oh, it's true, Jeanette. I'm a funkle. And see, that's what I like keeping money for. It is to be...
Uh-oh. Are we getting fired?
When the boss walks in.
Oh, thank God. It's going the other way. He's bringing us coffee.
You never know nowadays.
Hi, Aaron.
Thanks,
Oh, your
Aaron.
hair looks nice today.
Oh, coffee. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Oh, this is so great.
Do you want to say
Would it
hello
be
to the
so-
puppies?
My first job was at Denny's. So
Oh.
Do you want to tell us about
Were
it?
you a
Come
wait-
here. Come
were-
here. Come tell us
were
about
you
the
a
Rudy
waiter?
Tooty Fun and Fruity.
Wait, were you a
a
waiter?
host and a waiter.
A host and a waiter at Denny's
Come
was
here.
Aaron's first
Come
job.
talk. I don't want to.
That's a good impression, though.
Okay, tell us about Denny's.
No, it was a good first job.
Uh-huh.
Waiting tables is the best way to go because you can make so much money,
Mhm.
you know, and it's all you go home at the end of the night with money in your pocket. So
Now,
Question.
did you make minimum wage or did you make sub minimum wage?
this was a long time ago, and I think it was for a server. I think it was like $2.30 an hour
Mhm.
plus tips.
So that was probably below minimum wage at the time,
Oh,
though.
yeah,
Yeah. I had another question. Oh, were you one of the waiters who could remember everybody's order without writing stuff down?
No, I could do like maybe 2 people. I worked with someone
Uh-huh.
who could do that.
I-
Like, it was
like-
brilliant. And
Yeah.
like you're talking about like, hey, like over easy and bacon and
Yeah.
sausage and what do you know what I mean? And then what kind of toast? And I mean, it's those people, those
Yeah.
servers really.
I would
impress
love
me.
to. I never served, and I would love to test my brain someday and just see if I could do that. I don't think I
No.
could. I don't think
No,
I'd
you
be good at it. I might be.
Aaron, before you leave us, Howard says I worked at Denny's in Lockport in 1980 to 1983 as a cook and a waiter.
Oh, same Denny's on South Transit Road. Denny's 1488.
Do you remember Howard?
I don't. That was before my time.
Oh, oh yeah. I guess that's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah, 1996 to 2002.
Howard also says the Grand Slam for only 99 cents.
Yeah.
Shut up! A Grand Slam for 99 cents.
When I was
Wow.
there, it was $1.99. And now it's like $5.99 or something.
Inflation.
I love a Grand Slam.
2 pancakes, 2 eggs, 2 bacon, 2 sausage. Way to go. Goodbye.
Oh, that was nice. We forced Aaron to talk, and then I accidentally made him way older than he is.
What a-
Sorry, Aaron.
What a guy. So funny. Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity. Grand Slam.
What is Rudy Tooty Fresh and
I don't
Fruity?
know.
What's that?
That's every time. That's all I think of when I think of Denny's. Or like, is it Denny's or is it IHOP? I don't know.
That's so funny. I never heard it. Oh God. Yeah.
You know how they all have those funny names, like the Grand Slam.
Yeah, I
and-
used to get the All American Slam.
Right, exactly.
I like that one the best. It's great. It had scrambled eggs with cheddar cheese. It was good.
So funny.
Mhm.
Anyway, first jobs always memorable. Dunkin' Donuts was also a first job of mine.
Peter
that-
says he wishes he knew how bartenders remembered those drink menus.
I remember working at Dunkin' Donuts for $4.25, and somebody who I worked with got a quarter raise, and I was so mad. And I asked for that quarter to get up to $4.50, and they're like, "No."
Go clean the grease
Right.
fire.
And I, was then told to go clean the bathroom and the grease drain, and that was the end of Dunkin' Donuts.
Howard
for me.
says the gays tend to have the most disposable income of most groups in the country. I would probably think many are child free, and that could be a big reason why.
double income, no kids.
Yeah.
They call us dinks.
Dinks.
And
They
a
call-
whole lot more.
They call straights dinks too if they have no kids. Or they have sinks now, single income, no kids. They call themselves sinks. Dinks and sinks.
Gotta love it.
That's what they call them. It's funny.
Hey, thank you so much for being with us. John's dying.
John's a sink. Single income, no kids. What was your first job? Is this it?
Quick.
A what?
A park attendant.
Oh, a park attendant. That's a cool first job.
Zeke says, let's talk about kids. Do you think people without kids should have an opinion on discipline? That's a great conversation for tomorrow.
Ed sure does.
Have a great day.